Have you ever noticed that people around you behave as if they are actors, hiding their true thoughts and feelings, their shadow behind a mask of persona? This happens everywhere. Masks and pretense have become part of everyday life. But once you learn to read between the lines, you can see through these masks, see the manifestations of the shadow and complexes. Jungian psychology teaches us to be observant and able to work with the shadow. It helps to see the world as it is, without the illusions created by the persona. It is important to recognize the projections of the shadow in people and accept them with wisdom and calmness, realizing that behind the external behavior often hides. An example from everyday life: a regular meeting. Everyone nods, smiles, but behind these polite gestures, behind this persona, they hide their intentions. The manifestations of the shadow are visible in the little things, in movements, in pauses, in the tone of speech. Once you learn to catch these subtle signals, your perception of people, your understanding of their shadow, will change forever. Let's find out together what people really hide behind their words and actions, behind their persona. This technique may seem simple, but its effectiveness is impressive. It's like a superpower that doesn't require wearing a costume or a cape. What's most amazing is that no one suspects that you are using it. All that is required is to remain calm, attentive, and aware of the manifestation of the shadow. And when someone tells their version of the story, instead of arguing or imposing your opinion, the manifestation of the ego, it is enough to say 3 little words: tell me more. When people feel that they are truly being listened to, without judgment and interruptions, they gradually remove their defenses, their persona. Without the need to defend or argue, they begin to share much more than they initially planned. Such a phrase creates a safe space where a person feels ready to reveal their true motives, fears, insecurities, their shadow, without even realizing it. This technique works perfectly in different situations, in business meetings, in personal conversations, and even when interacting with people whose intentions may seem questionable and whose shadow may be especially active in negotiations. Instead of pressure, just say it. The other side begins to open up, sharing their strategy and even their doubts, their shadow. You will learn much more than planned. But it is important to note that this technique is not just a way to extract information or win arguments. It is a way to build trust, understanding, and facilitate the process of individuation of another person. In the modern world, where everyone is in a hurry to speak but rarely listens, the phrase "tell me more" becomes a real gift for the interlocutor. It is a step beyond one's own ego and a sincere interest in another person, in their inner world. When you invite people to share their thoughts and feelings without judging or interrupting, you give them the opportunity to be heard, which builds trust and strengthens mutual understanding. This technique is ideally one of the fundamental principles of Jungian psychology, the desire for wholeness, for the integration of the shadow. There is no talk of manipulation or control of the conversation here. Rather, it is the ability to observe, understand, and remain calm, being aware of the projections of the shadow. This allows you to see people as they really are, with all their light and shadow sides, helping them to reveal themselves. The ability to listen and observe without unnecessary interference is a form of inner strength, the strength of the ego. Try this technique in your next conversation, whether it's a casual chat, negotiation, or even an argument. You will be surprised at how much deeper the interaction becomes, how much people are willing to reveal, how easily they can be understood without pressure, and how much you can learn about their shadow. This is not just a victory in dialogue, but the creation of genuine human connections based on respect, sincere curiosity, and the desire to integrate the shadow. True strength lies in the ability to see others, their shadow, and through this, better understand oneself, one's own shadow, and move along the path of individuation. Second, pay attention to how they treat people who are in a less advantageous position. If you want to know a person's character, see their shadow, pay attention not only to how they communicate with you but also to how they behave with those they consider below themselves. This may seem controversial, but such observance reveals harsh truths about human nature, about the manifestations of the shadow, whether it's a waiter in a restaurant, a cashier in a store, or a colleague lower on the corporate ladder. How a person treats those who have less power reveals their true essence, their shadow. There are many examples of how a person who seemed kind and respectful in certain circumstances suddenly changes their behavior, manifesting their shadow when dealing with people from whom they expect nothing. It's easy to be polite and friendly to someone you want to impress. But as soon as a person realizes that they don't depend on the interlocutor, their shadow may come to the fore. If someone is kind to you but shows contempt, rudeness, or arrogance towards those in a dependent position, it is a sure sign that their kindness is just a mask of persona, not a true reflection of their personality. It is important not only to recognize the moments of the shadow's manifestation in others but also to avoid such manifestations in oneself. A person should be fair and generous to everyone, regardless of their position or status, striving for the integration of the shadow. After all, the true strength of character, the strength of the ego, is manifested not when we show ourselves in the best light, but when we remain true to our principles, ourself, even if there is no need to pretend, to maintain the persona. How people treat those they consider below themselves says a lot about how they see themselves, about the degree of their self-acceptance and integration of the shadow. Those who show respect and kindness to everyone often have inner confidence, harmony, and integrity. They do not need to elevate themselves at the expense of others. Those who humiliate and show cruelty to those they consider weaker project their own insecurities, fears, and complexes, their shadow. This is one of the forms of arrogance, a manifestation of the shadow. Therefore, if you want to know who a person really is, do not be deceived by their behavior in the circle of those they need to impress, maintaining their persona. The true character, the degree of integration of the shadow, is manifested in how they behave with those they consider insignificant. This is the surest way to see a person's true essence, their shadow. Third technique, their past is the key to their present. If you want to look into a person's soul, understand their shadow, pay attention to their past. Often you can hear that the past is left behind, but this is just an illusion. It always stays with us and shapes who we are today, whether we realize it or not. A person's experience, trauma, victories, relationships, all of this affects their thoughts, behavior, complexes, and manifestations of the shadow, and even how they interact with you at the moment. A person's past is not just a set of memories, it is an active force shaping their present. People do not just live on, they carry their stories, their unresolved issues, which sometimes become the blueprint for their actions, dictated by the shadow. For example, a person who is constantly on edge, showing a defensive reaction, may have experienced traumatic events in the past that shaped their shadow. They faced situations that taught them not to trust, to defend themselves, and to expect the worst. The past dictates their actions in the present, their reactions are dictated by the shadow. Someone who grew up without attention may crave constant recognition, compensating for a complex of inferiority. Someone who has faced betrayal now finds it difficult to trust people, projecting the shadow. Understanding a person's past is not an excuse for their behavior, but it allows us to see the motives and reactions formed on the basis of past experience, on the basis of their shadow and complexes. It is important to see things as they are, without judgment, realizing the influence of the shadow. Understanding someone's past is part of a clear vision of reality. Applying this approach, one can more deeply understand that a person often reacts not to current events but to the echoes of their experiences, to their shadow. This can be noticed in relationships as well. For example, if a partner. The harsh truth is that many people live in a circle, repeating the same patterns of behavior laid down in the past, dictated by the shadow and complexes, even without realizing it. For example, a colleague constantly seeking confirmation of their significance may be reliving a childhood in which they never felt good enough, a complex. A friend who sabotages relationships is likely afraid of rejection due to previous disappointment, a manifestation of the shadow. Their reactions and decisions are a mirror of their unresolved experiences, their shadow. But understanding a person's past goes even deeper. It not only helps you navigate relationships with them better but also gives you the opportunity to help a person break out of a vicious circle. You can help a person realize their habits, their complexes, and possibly finally face what they have been avoiding for years, their shadow. It is important to remember about self-analysis, introspection, and personal growth. Understanding someone else's past can help direct a person on the path of self-improvement, on the path of integrating the shadow. It is easy to judge people by their actions in the present, but the key to understanding their shadow, their complexes, their behavior, and this allows for more empathy and understanding, while protecting oneself from involvement in their unresolved problems, in their shadow. The past always stays with us. To truly understand a person, you need to see the whole picture, their entire history, not just the part they are living at the moment, not just their persona. Fourth technique, sudden changes in tone are a signal of lies or insecurity. One of the most obvious signs that a person is lying, hiding something, or experiencing internal conflict is changes in their voice. Our voice reflects internal conflicts, the influence of the shadow. When a person feels confident, their body and mind are in harmony. But as soon as lying begins or a person feels discomfort related to the shadow, they begin to reveal their true state through their voice. This can manifest as a rise in tone, uneven speech tempo, stumbling, or pauses that seem too long. Sometimes the voice becomes quieter, and sometimes, on the contrary, too cheerful, as if the person is trying to hide their insecurity, their shadow behind a feigned change in tone. This is a sure indicator that the person is experiencing discomfort, whether due to lying, hiding information, their own insecurity, or internal conflict related to the shadow. For example, when a colleague who is always confident in their words suddenly changes their tone in a conversation about a project, this may signal that they are hiding something, not entirely confident in their actions, or experiencing an internal conflict related to the shadow. These changes often occur unconsciously. People may try to control their words but not always. It is important to learn to observe people's behavior without judgment, being aware of the manifestation of the shadow. Attentive listening and analysis of tone changes can give a more complete picture of what is happening in the interlocutor's inner world, even if their words seem confident. It is worth remembering that people lie not only to others but also to themselves. When a person suddenly changes their tone, it is not always a sign of manipulation or deception. It can be a sign of internal conflict, a struggle with the shadow that the person may not even be aware of. It is important to strive for harmony between thoughts, words, and actions to integrate the shadow. When they do not match, it inevitably becomes noticeable. By listening to yourself or others, we can expose these inconsistencies, these manifestations of the shadow, and work on restoring this harmony, moving along the path of individuation. The next time you notice a sudden change in tone in a conversation, a drop in energy, an awkward pause, a change in intonation, do not ignore it. Ask yourself, what is this person hiding? What shadow are they trying to hide? What are they uncomfortable with? What internal conflict are they experiencing? It may not be a lie in the full sense, but there is a high probability that they are not being completely honest, that they are struggling with their shadow. The voice is a storyteller, and if you listen carefully, you can hear its story, the story of its shadow. Fifth technique, a person's true face is revealed when they think no one is watching. If you want to know, see their shadow, pay attention to how they behave when they think no one is watching them. It is in these moments that people take off the mask, the persona they wear in front of society, and reveal their true personality, their shadow. This is a controversial truth, as many want to believe that who they are in public, their persona, coincides with who they remain alone with themselves. However, in reality, it often happens differently. When a person does not consider themselves an object of observation, they allow themselves to act more naturally, manifesting their shadow. An example can be colleagues who maintain politeness and friendliness in front of management, maintaining their persona, but lose this mask as soon as the boss leaves the office. At such moments, their shadow is manifested through a dismissive attitude towards the team, rude jokes, or caustic comments. Behind the external facade, behind the persona, lies a completely different reality, the reality of the shadow. This applies to all aspects of life, relationships, business, casual encounters. For example, in romantic relationships, people often try to show themselves in the best light in the early stages, maintaining their persona, but to truly understand a person, to see their shadow, you can only do so by observing their behavior in unconstrained moments when there is no need to make an impression. It is worth paying attention to the little things, how a person reacts to stressful situations, how they behave when they think no one is watching them. These everyday moments reveal much more than showy behavior in important meetings or large social situations. It is important to learn to observe the world objectively, without judgment, being aware of the manifestation of the shadow. People often unconsciously manifest their shadow, show who they really are. It is important to remember that virtue, the integrity of the personality, does not need applause, even when their actions are not evaluated by anyone living in accordance with their values, with their self. However, many people, being out of sight of others, manifest less attractive traits, their shadow. Seeing how a person behaves when they think they are not noticed, you can understand how sincere their actions are, how integrated their shadow is. This is who you are in the shadow, not in the light, not in your persona. It is important to live in accordance with your values, with yourself, always, regardless of whether others are watching you, regardless of whether the hall is full or empty. The action of an integral person remains consistent with their self, not from the desire to receive approval from others, the dictate of the persona. By observing other people in their unconstrained moments, you will not only reveal their true essence, their shadow, but also remind yourself of the importance of living honestly and authentically, integrating the shadow and following the path of individuation, even when no one is watching. Therefore, if you want to truly understand a person, not their persona, it is important to pay attention to what they do when the spotlight is off. It is at this moment that the true character, the degree of integration of the shadow, is revealed, and it is there that the truth lives. Sixth technique: emotional reactions reveal priorities. To understand what is truly important to a person, what their values are, what their shadow is, it is enough to carefully observe their reactions in various situations. Emotions are a direct window into a person's inner world, into their shadow. They reveal their values, priorities, and what is truly dear to them. Although many of us believe that we can control our emotions and hide what concerns us with the help of the persona, in reality, strong reactions, whether anger, excitement, or anxiety coming from the shadow, indicate that something significant is at stake, something related to their self or, on the contrary, to their shadow. This is a controversial idea since many are confident in their self-control, in the strength of their persona. But as soon as emotions get out of control, they reveal a person's true priorities, their shadow. Imagine a situation: a colleague, usually calm and balanced, suddenly loses their temper over what seems to be an insignificant edit in a project. This outburst of anger, a manifestation of the shadow, may be surprising, but most likely, their emotions are related to the fact that the project has personal significance for them, and they perceive it as their brainchild, as part of their self. Such reactions do not arise out of nowhere, they indicate that the self or the shadow has been touched. People's emotional reactions often reveal more than words. For example, a boss who loses their temper if their decision is questioned likely associates their sense of self-worth, their self, with infallibility, which may be a manifestation of a complex. A friend who reacts strongly to your innocent remark may be hiding deep-seated insecurity, their shadow. A colleague who reacts overly emotionally to praise for their work shows that recognition is one of their main priorities, even if they have never voiced it. The key point here is that strong emotions, both positive and negative, are always related to what a person considers important, to their self or to their shadow. People remain calm and detached in ordinary situations, but when something that is truly important to them is threatened, their shadow comes to the surface, and they flare up. This applies not only to anger or irritation but also to things that bring joy and inspiration. The joyful excitement that a person shows when talking about their hobby or a project that inspires them indicates that this has special significance for them, that it is connected to their self. In relationships, this is even more pronounced. If a person is upset about cancelled plans, it is a sign that spending time together is very important to them. If they become animated when discussing trips or events, it indicates that creating shared experiences is one of their priorities. Emotions are always related to values, to the self or to the shadow, and by observing them, one can more deeply understand what truly concerns a person. For example, if someone suddenly starts defending themselves when you mention punctuality, it may mean that they attach special importance to punctuality, possibly due to past experiences when they were let down or due to an internal need for control, manifestations of the shadow. It is important to observe people's behavior objectively, without judgment, being aware of the manifestation of the shadow. Emotions are one of the most important indicators of a person's true priorities, their self or their shadow. When a person shows strong emotions, it means that an important topic for them has been touched upon. Being aware of this, one can better understand people's motives, their shadow, but it is important to remember that the same principles apply to yourself. Your own reactions and emotions are a mirror of your true values, yourself, and your shadow. Use this knowledge to better understand both others and yourself, your shadow. Strive to live in harmony with your values, with yourself, every day, regardless of the circumstances. This is the strength of true virtue and the path to individuation.